can't believe we're already talking about silly season. I mean, I can, because the sport is the silliest thing ever, and I feel like every season is, like, silly season should just be the F1 calendar. Not when they're not racing.
And also just, I thought it would start sooner. It's the end of June, and this is the first time we really felt like we needed to put, like, a driver movement silly season topic on the show rundown, which is, somehow feels late, but also way too early.
Yeah, I think part of me feels like it's been just enough time for people to see what's happening with Red Bull. There's just enough time to see who right behind Red Bull is catching up, we're already seeing with some B-spec upgrades and legitimate upgrades that could be something, and then beginning to see consistent difference in driver performance or teammate performances, and then that it just so naturally sparks conversation just because people can see numbers of okay, if you guys have that car, why are you not holding hands across the finish line? Which it's more complex than that, but it feels like there's just been enough data that can spark the conversation.
Yeah, there's enough data mixed with a weekend with no racing and people needing to fill headlines. So I have 6 headlines to run through with you right now, because somehow there are 6 things, and most of them are Red Bull, because of course most of them are Red Bull related. Let's start with Ferrari. There have been rumors that both Charles and Carlos are in various stages of discussions for extensions. They're both signed on through next season, through the 2024 season. But it seems like, according to where you look, and just remember that a lot of the Italian media is kind of reading the Daily Mail. So what are your thoughts? Do you think both one or neither will sign an extension in the next couple months, like we're hearing?
I feel that they will both end up signing extensions. I don't necessarily believe that they will both be signed before the end of this season. I can very much see it going into next year and both or one. And I honestly don't necessarily have... I mean, if I were to pick one that they're going to extend... No, I feel like it would be either. I just think they're going to end up both extending. I just feel like it could just be start of next year. We see promise and this is their announcement. They need some kind of hope of extension. I feel like the way that the season's going, and this is me assuming that the vibes are not going to change at Ferrari by the end of the season. People are not going to want that positive news of your 2 drivers that you don't really feel are performing, when I don't necessarily think it's their faults, are sticking around. And then it could be a Ferrari fever dream next year of extension, hope, it's here, and then it all happens all over again.
I think that if I was Ferrari, I would not announce anything until I have both of them to announce, and I would announce both of them in a dead period on the calendar at some point. I would definitely not do it around race time, and I would announce both of them at the same time, because I do think they're both going to get extensions, and nothing would be worse than announcing a Carlos Sainz extension and not a Charles, or vice versa.
Right.
Just sign both of them and then announce it at the same time. I do think it would be smart for Ferrari to lock both of them down, in the sense that just remove any conversation. There's enough chaos going around Ferrari. If you can say both of our drivers are here through 2025, that would just people would stop talking about one of the things. Is maybe.
But would they?
No, they wouldn't. The truth is they wouldn't. This is a silly conversation.
Will they really talk about anything in terms of extension?
Okay, we can't get to that topic yet.
I know. No, but I don't even mean in what's currently happening now, of just a flashback of last year, of just how many instances do we see oh, your contract's for this long and this is where it is. It's
contracts are real in F1.
I'm agreeing with you on everywhere that you said. It would be smart for Ferrari. And that's when also my brain says, so they're probably not going to do that.
Yeah. Another subtle topic before we get to Red Bull chaos. Apparently, Lewis's contract is signed and will be announced at Silverstone. I've been saying all season that we're going to get the announcement because the home Grand Prix is going to be a big deal, and I've wanted them to do it sooner to quell my personal anxieties about all of this. But do you think we're going to get the announcement in 2 weeks?
100%. That is where my gut is. That's what I feel. And I think for anything, if the team is aka Toto, or anywhere other quotes, but last week we were talking specifically about different quotes we were hearing from Toto of hope about Silverstone and upgrades. I think it's a good way to spend no matter what comes out of Silverstone, having Lewis as an extended contract anyway, that's a plus.
We have to get to all the Red Bull things. I'm going to bookend this with Daniel Ricciardo, because that's a lot to unpack.
Yeah.
But we'll start with, it seems like everyone and their mother is in line for the AlphaTauri seat that doesn't currently exist, but kind of exists. So you can't talk about the AlphaTauri seat without talking about the Red Bull seat. So I'm going to try to sum this up all together. So it seems like Checo's out at the end of this year, even if he's not out during this year. Of course, Red Bull can get impatient and kick him out now. Everyone keeps saying that Yuki's in line for that seat, but Yuki has come out and made a quote that he's just looking to step up to a better team. That's it, just a better team. Aston Martin is going to be a Honda's works team, and Honda's always made it very clear that they want Yuki in a seat, which is why he is in the Red Bull family. So Checo might be out. Yuki might be in that seat. Therefore, there might be 2 AlphaTauri seats. But all of that is because it's pretty much known now that Nyck is going to lose his seat. Even it's like the spoken truth. Like, we all just act like it's going to happen, which makes me really sad. So who's going to be in the AlphaTauri seat? Is it going to be super fast IndyCar driver Alex Palou, who has publicly said that he requested a meeting with Helmut Marko because he wants to be in F1? Is it going to be Liam Lawson, who's the, like, Red Bull Junior driver they seem to just, like, have there and not want to drive in F1 ever? Or is it going to be Mr. Daniel Ricciardo, who it was announced this, we already knew this, but it was reconfirmed this week that he's going to be doing one of the Pirelli tire testing for Red Bull, and Christian Horner has said that is to evaluate whether or not he can drive a car, essentially. And Daniel Ricciardo has said that he's willing to take an AlphaTauri seat to work back up to the Red Bull team. I just threw a ton of information out. Nicole, there's always 3 non-Max Verstappen Red Bull seats open. Who do you foresee as their 2024 lineup as we're talking June 27th, 2023? Actually, how about this? Who do you foresee at this point, and then who do you want? And I think we should both give some Red Bull lineups.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Where to begin with? That's a lot to unpack right now.
It's not emotional for you at all.
No, definitely not at all. And I'm really struggling with being the Nicole Katz Daniel Ricciardo fan that's trying her best not to process any of this information until an announcement is made. And Nicole Katz that hosts an F1 podcast where she has to have legitimate conversations about the things that are happening in the news. So we're going to start with talking about Nyck de Vries.
But you see why, like, all these headlines, like, I can't, like, talk, like, it's so hard to discuss anything going on at Red Bull without, like, all of them being interconnected, because Red Bull has 4 seats, and they all work together, and, like, whether Yuki gets moved up to the top team, and what do they do with Checo, and what do they do with Nyck de Vries, like, all of it is just, like, mush. Red Bull's unhappy with all of their drivers that are not named Max Verstappen could be the title of this segment.
Yes. I feel very sorry for Nyck. It feels like it was, like, the easiest... It seems to be just like the easiest not decision, and all of like the Helmut Marko quotes. I mean, I feel like it's very rare that I read one that doesn't give me like a, oh, this feels like bullying.
Don't
but, like,
listen to Voldemort.
I know.
We have.
Sometimes he slithers through my Twitter timeline, and I'm just like, don't talk about Nyck that way. I can't. But it was so. It's incredible the amount of like hope last year of it's like he's everyone's team, he's everywhere, and now he's like potentially going to be nowhere.
The signing, even at the time, felt very much like Red Bull trying to get one over on Mercedes than them actually wanting Nyck de Vries. And to your point, I feel bad for him as a human, like who, like this was his dream. He wanted this seat finally. He thought he was making a good choice. Like I feel bad.
Yeah, it's just, I think, going to be a really short-lived dream for him, at least for right now. And then who knows how things will shuffle and open up. I don't foresee any removal of Checo during the season. I think that is a PR nightmare coming from Red Bull. Not that they haven't done it in the past. I just particularly think Checo fan base is different than other drivers this has occurred with.
Yeah, than like drivers at the beginning of their career that they shuffled around. Yeah. I think that if any team on the grid is able to put some pressure on Red Bull, I think they would make a change. Especially if they, let's say in their brains, they've slotted in Yuki for the seat next year, and it would be easy for them to just put Yuki in the seat this year, and another team's putting some kind of pressure on Red Bull, I could see maybe.
Red Bull released a video, I believe today, might have been yesterday, of Yuki and Max driving like mega monster trucks, and it is the most wild pairing of people I've ever seen participate in any activity ever. And all I
talked about this last week.
Like, it is right. It is like, I just love the opening of like, I'm with the shortest F1 driver on the grid. I'm just like, this in a garage would be kind of crazy and
in a fun way.
Right. But I also like chaos. Okay. So I do want to say, and again, this is now where I'm getting to the Daniel Ricciardo of it all, because I know this is, I need to formulate real thoughts and acknowledge that this is real. So me not processing it as a fan until it's news and wanting to be a good podcast host, I'm coming to terms that I don't think he will be in the Red Bull seat.
But I want you to process it as a fan. It's much better content.
He's going to be in the Red Bull seat, and he's going to fight Max, and he's going to become... I'm not...
You don't actually feel that way. But I actually want to know, as someone who is a diehard Daniel Ricciardo fan, like, would you want him in that AlphaTauri seat? Like, if you were putting together... Like, yes, they're not going to put him straight in the Red Bull seat.
Right.
But if you were formulating an AlphaTauri lineup for next year, like, would you hope he was in it? Like, is there a desire to see him racing on the grid again?
See, that's the caveat, is in that car. Just because right now I think, God, that I just listening to Nyck and Yuki driving that AlphaTauri car right now just sounds like you're making someone drive a brick. It sounds painful, it sounds impossible, it sounds frustrating, and it's no surprise that, like, that's not where the eyes of Red Bull go or looking to, like, be... Like, look, AlphaTauri's not... Like, it's just there. It is Red Bull's sister team that they just use to, like, form and make their drivers. Sometimes maybe it depends. It is not the place for Daniel Ricciardo, in my opinion. But if, like, the way that this is all shuffling and who I am as a Daniel Ricciardo fan, put him there for a year because I want some fun back. That is my so not serious. I don't think it'll be good for his career move unless it eventually somehow put him back in the Red Bull seat, which I don't think would necessarily make him competitive to Max. I think it would still be just like a second to Max. But that would be, again, I'm not even foreseeing him in, like, that seat at all. So in my brain, it's either the AlphaTauri seat or, like, not nowhere else. And I just foresee him being back on the grid, but incredibly frustrated.
Well, I mean, because I'm asking, and I wanted to know your perspective as a fan, because as a non-Daniel Ricciardo fan, I don't feel any desire for him to be back on the grid. That doesn't interest me, even in the Red Bull seat. Like, I just don't care.
Right.
But I want to hear your perspective, because, like, you last year... like, you were so sad when he didn't have a drive for this year. So that's why it's actually really surprising for me to hear how subdued and, like, not... I mean, there's, like, withholding excitement, but there's also, like, I know you decently well. This is not just you withholding excitement. This is you, like, kind of not being excited at the prospect of Daniel Ricciardo being in the AlphaTauri.
This is where I make the comparison come fully will you'll understand where my brain is coming from. I love the album 1989. Taylor Swift had horrendous mental health during the era of 1989, so it puts a bad taste in my mouth. Daniel Ricciardo being on the grid but in a car that underperforms, causing him unbelievable mental health issues and frustration, I don't want to see again. Especially now seeing him being very happy in the endeavors. It's seemingly looks very happy in what he's pursuing and doing, and, like, he says he wants to be on the grid, but, like, I just, in comparison of where we've seen him recently and compared to now, just emotionally, he just seems to be glowing. So I, as a Daniel Ricciardo fan, am not jumping at the idea of him being in a very similar situation where you're just like, hey, you're back on the grid, but you're driving a brick. You're driving a tractor. Car. Yeah.
Yeah. I will put the caveat in your brain to ponder on, and then we should move on from Daniel Ricciardo specifically, that if he's driving that AlphaTauri, it's because Red Bull doesn't think all hope is lost, that he could one day be back in the Red Bull, which is why it's different than the McLaren situation, in my opinion. Like, Red Bull, I don't think will just throw... Red Bull knows they can have the PR of Daniel Ricciardo without having to give him an F1 car. Right. So if they put him in that F1 car, they think not all hope is lost. But, you know, they got the Nyck de Vries thing wrong, so I'm like, what does Red Bull know? Now, if I'm formulating the Red Bull lineup I want for next year, so this is not logical. This is hopes, dreams, and wants, okay?
Mm-hmm.
I want Max Verstappen and I want Yuki Tsunoda because I want the chaotic duo, and I think Yuki is driving out of his mind and deserves the call-up. And then I want Alex Palou and Daniel Ricciardo in the AlphaTauri. Because if Alex Palou, who is an incredible IndyCar driver, wants the F1 drive, I want someone to give him the F1 drive. And I think if you put him next to Daniel Ricciardo and he does well, I think that will bode well for his stock. And we get a little bit of Daniel Ricciardo chaos back on the grid, which it is missing. Like, I don't think anyone's going to fill that without him. So, and plus it would make you really happy. And if we could go through another Daniel Ricciardo season on the pod, oh my gosh. So that's my dream scenario. How do you feel? Would you sign on to said dream scenario?
I definitely am signing on. First of all, I just feel like I need to join in on the, like, I'm sorry, Liam. Like, it's going to be...
yeah. You know.
No, but my favorite thing on the internet yesterday and the Alpine-ness of it all is, like, Ryan Reynolds will probably end up in a Red Bull seat before Liam does. And I could not... I was laughing for so long. So, sorry, Liam. My
logical lineup is Liam instead of Daniel Ricciardo. I put Daniel Ricciardo in there because I want to watch you, Nicole Katz, get to see Daniel Ricciardo in an AlphaTauri, not because I want to see Daniel Ricciardo in an AlphaTauri. I think the whole point of having a development team is to develop drivers, not to put your old slow drivers, but that's okay. Whatever. Chaos. I just want chaos.
Do it for the content.
Yes.
Yeah, no, this wasn't... the logical answer is too easy. Wow, that's so funny. I know Yuki deserves the call-up, but I'm going to say the logical answer of, like, Yuki in that Red Bull seat, that is going to would be chaos.
Look, Red Bull, if you're not going to provide on-track entertainment, I feel like I'm going to say this every week. We talked about this in the pod last week. Red Bull, if you are not going to give me a second seat that is competitive with your first seat, even remotely, even just finishing P2 competitive, why don't you call up Yuki and just give me some chaos and some excitement and more content like that? Like, come on. Red Bull, I know you're itching to make an in-season driver change. Like, please.
Thank you for watching this highlight from episode 23 of Grid Walk. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more F1 videos and a ton of F1 fun. Also, you made it this far into the video. Why not watch the rest of the podcast? Because the full thing's right here. Ready? Click with me. Ready? Click here. Click, 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 click.